A few years ago, Salman Rushdie was nearly killed on stage. If you don't know Rushdie's story, here's the quick version. He's the novelist who spent decades under a death threat after publishing the Satanic Verses.
Blasphemy, and blasphemy is a capital crime in Islam, punishable by death.
A book that made him a global symbol of free speech, blasphemy, literary fame, and political danger. And despite the title, The Satanic Verses is not a book about Satanism. It's a surreal, magical realist novel about migration, exile, identity, faith, and the strange collision of cultures, which is part of why the controversy around it became so enormous and so misunderstood.
Salman, this book is concerned very strongly with religion. Are you a religious person yourself?
Well, I suppose the way of saying this is that there's a character in Midnight's Children, the character of the grandfather, who nobody ever thinks of as being autobiographical, but in fact I've always thought of as being more autobiographical than the narrator of Midnight's Children. There's a character, the grandfather basically loses his faith, and is described as having a hole inside him, a sort of God-shaped hole inside him, where God used to be. And I think something similar happened to me. I mean, that's to say that I ceased to be formally religious at quite an early age. I mean, it's a teenager, I suppose, and I've never changed. I've never been born again, so to speak. But I've always remained. There's always been this kind of nagging space where the religion used to be.
So in 2022, a man attacked him with a knife while he was about to speak at a literary event. A new documentary, Knife, The Attempted Murder of Salman Rushdie, looks back at that attack and Rushdie's recovery. But this video is about something I couldn't stop thinking about when I heard the news. So today I want to focus on the place where the attack happened and the irony that Rushdie was attacked in a community built around open speech, public thought, and the belief that words should be answered with words, not violence. The attack happened at the Chautauqua Institute. And Chautauqua is not just a venue. It's a whole little world behind gates in Western New York. Victorian houses with wide porches, a grand hotel set back on a sprawling lawn, kids riding bike toward the sailing center, people walking to lectures with books tucked under their arms, bells ringing somewhere, gardens everywhere, and a lake glittering at the edge of it all. A day there can start with coffee from the small market, move onto a lecture about democracy or religion, drift into a writing class or a concert, and end with people sitting on porches in the dark talking like the internet was never invented. There are very few cars. It's very hard to get a car there. Nobody seems to be on their phone. If you've seen the movie Big Fish, it feels like the town of Spectre mixed with the resort from Dirty Dancing, but with more book clubs and better lectures. It is heaven. And I got to spend 2 weeks there. I went in 2019 on a full scholarship to the Chautauqua Writer Center. And I didn't know much about it before I arrived. I knew there was a writing program. I knew it was in Western New York. I knew there would be classes and plenty of free time for me to sort of think and ponder and write and attend all of these wonderful events. What I did not know was that I would be living in a dorm with teenagers. I was 43 at the time. I was sharing dorm and cafeteria life with students who were, I think, somewhere between 10 and 19 years old. I was one of maybe 2 older people in the program and living in the dorms. And I remember thinking, I am not sure anyone fully thought this through. My room was tiny, twin beds, no air conditioning, one small box fan that seemed to be mostly there for morale. It was warm, to be generous. No, it was sweltering. My roommate was a young poet named Mariah Hicks from Ohio. We hit it off right away. She was curious and funny, and we had great conversations in that tiny, dorm room. She talked about wanting to help people after she graduated and continue writing poetry, talked about my job in journalism, which at the time meant covering mortgages and housing, about as far from creative writing as you can get. Before I left, she gave me a copy of her poetry book, To Wilt and Bloom, and inscribed it to me. It was lovely. And to understand why Chautauqua feels so unusual, you have to understand what it was built to be. Chautauqua started in 1874 as a teaching camp for Sunday school teachers. It was founded by Lewis Miller, an inventor and industrialist, and Methodist Bishop John Hale Vincent. So yes, religion is baked into its origin story. But today, Chautauqua is not church camp. It's religiously inclusive. The modern institution is built around interfaith dialogue and welcomes people of all faiths, as well as agnostics, atheists, and people who are mostly there just for the lectures, the music, the art, the lake, and the truly excellent porch sitting. So at first, people arrived by steamboat on Chautauqua Lake to study the Bible and to train as teachers. Then the idea grew. Chautauqua became part religious gathering, part school, part summer retreat, part lecture circuit, and part arts festival. Over time, it expanded into music, theater, opera, dance, visual art, public lectures, writing, politics, and recreation. Before radio, television, podcasts, or TED Talks, Chautauqua was one of the ways Americans heard big public ideas. Speakers, preachers, teachers, musicians, and performers traveled around the country through what became known as the Chautauqua movement. At its peak in the 1920s, that movement reached thousands of communities and millions of people. That's one reason this place is so hard to explain now. Chautauqua used to be a national reference point. Now the original institution is a destination, a gated, seasonal, 750-acre community on a lake in western New York. This obscure little summer village has hosted some of the biggest names in American public life. The amphitheater is the center of that history. The original structure was built in the 1890s, and it became one of the most important lecture stages in the country. Franklin Roosevelt spoke there.
I've always thought that peace, like charity, begins at home. And that's why.
So did Susan B. Anthony, Booker T. Washington, Amelia Earhart, Thurgood Marshall, Sandra Day O'Connor. The list goes on. Architecture critic Paul Golderberger once described the old amp as a great wooden tent, which is exactly right. It's not some polished marble hall. It's open air, wooden, informal, and kind of grand at the same time. Anyone can go, but it takes some planning. During the summer season, you usually need a gate pass or event ticket to enter. You can stay on the grounds in a hotel, in rental cottage or residence hall, but space is limited and it can get expensive. You can also stay off the grounds and buy a day ticket or event ticket. Cars are very limited inside. You park outside or near the edge, then walk, bike, or use the shuttle and tram system. Part of my scholarship was that I had to take writing classes. I ate at the cafeteria, I bought food at the Plaza Market, I paddleboarded on the lake, I went to evening events, I saw Bella Fleck, I watched Star Wars: A New Hope with a live orchestra, I heard Ira Glass speak. But the moments that stayed with me were smaller. Every morning I left my dorm and headed toward the writing center. Instead of walking on the street with everyone else, I cut through the large, gateless backyards of old Victorian lake houses that felt like they belonged in an old children's book. Teens would be sunbathing on docks. I mean, the lake was just beautiful. The grass was thick and soft and so bright green. It reminded me of every Florida summer memory I had rolled into one. I walked barefoot every morning. I felt like I was 12 again. One of the days I was there, I visited all of the gardens, and there are many. They're quiet little spots that could be the subject of a William Blake poem. And at night, the place felt completely different. It was alive in a very different way. I used to have to walk back across the grounds in the dark. The walk could be scary and beautiful at the same time. There was the smell of flowers in the air, bikes passing by, voices from porches, light coming from old houses, the lake somewhere beyond the trees. And I remember thinking, nothing could be this perfect, right? I even asked the police if crimes ever happened there. They told me sometimes a bike goes missing, but it usually turns up by the end of the summer. That was the level of danger I associated with Chautauqua. A missing bicycle, not an attempted murder. Rushdie was attacked there 3 years later. It was hard to fit that news into the place I remembered. Rushdie was at the amphitheater, about to speak at an event connected to writers and safety. Then a man rushed the stage and stabbed him. Rushdie survived, but he was badly injured. He lost sight in one eye. He later wrote about the attack in his memoir, Knife, and now Alex Gibney's documentary is bringing the story back to the screen. But for me, the question has never only been, what happened to Salman Rushdie? The question is also, what kind of place was he standing in when it happened? Because the attack did not happen in a random conference room. It happened in one of America's oldest institutions dedicated to public thought, a place built around the belief that conversation matters. That's what made the attack feel so bleak. It was a violence entering a place designed for listening. And maybe that place was always more fragile than it looked. Maybe Chautauqua felt safe because it was protected by gates, tradition, community, and a shared agreement that everyone there was participating in the same dream. But the world does not always respect the dream. Chautauqua is not perfect. No place is. It's privileged, it's strange, can be expensive, earnest, and a little insulated, but it's also rare. And it's still active. The 2026 season runs from late June through the end of August. This summer's theme include women who change the world, the future of media, the 2026 election, artists working against the odds, and the importance of gathering. That sounds very Chautauqua. It's a place where American self-improvement and free thought and the exchange of ideas became architecture. And after what happened to Salman Rushdie, it's also a reminder that places built around ideas are not separate from the conflicts those ideas create. Describing Chautauqua is a little like describing the idea of America. Not America as it is every day, but America as a dream. People from different backgrounds gathering under one roof or one tent or one old hotel porch because they believe there is something sacred about learning, talking, listening, and imagining a better world.